Hi, so welcome back from Toronto. I'm joined in the studio, our little portable studio, by Abdullah Choudhry, who joins us from Arbor, and you're one of the exhibitors here at the Canadian Lenders Association Summit. So welcome.
Thank you.
So just, Abdullah, you're based in Toronto. Just tell me a little bit about why you've come to the event today and the kind of speakers, the people you're speaking to, and what you're hoping to.
Yeah, so I'm actually based in Calgary.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm in town to meet with a lot of financial institutions to hopefully bridge the gap that exists between sustainable supplies and then also the access to capital to be able to purchase those supplies. So essentially, the cost of capital for making procurement decisions for lower carbon emission materials, suppliers, products, parts, it should have some sort of incentives on the financing side so that more and more businesses can adapt it and essentially build it into their profitability of their business.
Cool. So actually, I saw on your stand that it was all about sustainability and reducing emissions, which are two things you don't normally associate with banking and finance.
Yes.
So I love that. So what incentives are there associated with that? Because that's different to the UK.
Yeah, it is a lot different from the UK. So in Canada, there's a first of its kind climate disclosure law called B15 by the OSFI regulator, which is making all the federally regulated financial institutions, they have to disclose the emissions associated with their lending activities. So essentially the intent behind that is that if a bank actually says, I'm committed to reducing emissions at a global level, or I'm committed to net zero, they can't do that without having their portfolio emissions be accounted for. So portfolio emissions usually make up for 90% or more of a bank's emissions. So, an office recycling program, an EV program is only going to get us so far unless we actually put real capital behind those things. It's only going to be on the front end and nothing in the back end. So I'm hoping that at a supply chain level, more and more companies are able to participate in the net zero transitions and not be left behind by having access to cleaner capital with a lower cost of capital.
Yeah, there's a big topic for us, obviously, with EVs. So our focus is automotive and helping retailers deliver the best advice for consumers. Is there an impact on the way that they provide finance, or can having EVs in their portfolio help to make sure that they're more compliant more quickly?
So I think there's two components of it, right? So mostly EVs are like reducing emissions at an operational level. So like energy use is not directly tied to using fossil fuels, right? You can use it from a number of sources. The other part is like the OEM parts, right? So like essentially everything that goes into a car also has a supply chain. So all the parts, the engines, the materials, even the tires themselves. And if those materials were also made in a certain way, like if there was some sort of recycled steel that could be used in making the chassis of a car instead of a normal steel, we feel like those kind of suppliers and those kind of supply chains should have an edge in the market. And that's essentially what we work with, is in the intersection of the supply chains and the financing and procurement decisions. We want to be able to provide the data that allows those things to happen with trust and confidence.
The work that you do helps those businesses in those massive procurement decisions make the right decisions to be sort of financially beneficial to them. They're making the right choices because also there's a financial benefit to making those choices and a planetary benefit to making those choices. So one thing will drive the behaviour of the other, but there are financial incentives that companies could really make the most of if they understand where they can make those savings.
Yeah, exactly. One of my co-founders is actually in Stuttgart right now. He is talking to a lot of the OEM parts producing companies for brands like BMW, Porsche, and a lot of those German companies. And that's exactly the problem that they're trying to force, is like, hey, we know that we can reduce the emissions at an operational level, like when we have to use energy in a car, but what about making of the car? What about maintaining of the car and making this car really durable? How do those other elements play into like a business's role in that aspect? And as you know, like every business's like decisions are made on like how much margins they have, how much profitability they have, and there's so much access of capital towards the automotive industry that isn't lined up towards these incentives. And that's essentially what we're trying to bridge, is that making these decisions at a product level or a part level should be in line with those things. And one example that comes to mind is Crocs. The footwear company in the US uses the Arbor platform. And for the last 40 years, they've been making shoes using a barrel of oil and then making synthetic rubber. using our platform last year, they started substituting some of it with used cooking oil, and it has propped up its own supply chain in the areas that they have their manufacturing operations, because now they use enough of that material in their shoes, and they make enough of the shoes that essentially the demand of fossil fuel as a material to be used in the footwear market has dropped substantially because of what they're doing, and we're hoping to do the same thing in the automotive market too.
I think we've seen some real kind of innovation. I know Stellantis have people that are dedicated just to supply, to kind of the circular economy of goods and products.
Yeah.
So you're not just putting stuff into landfill, you're actually reusing it in the right way. So you can make products out of waste effectively. And that's, that's good for everybody. That's good for future.
No, we have so many like mining operations that we're starting off for the rare earth metals and all these like energy transition industry-wide adoption that we have to go through. But then if we are better at mining our own waste, we'll have a lot more material recovery available a lot more faster, and we don't really have much time to lose.
Thank you so much, Abdullah. That was really amazing. That's Abdullah Choudhry, who joined us from Arbor here in Canada. Thanks very much.